Good morning, good afternoon to all of you. I'm a little jet lagged, so I'm not so sure about what time of day it is. I was going to begin by speaking about three events in the United States in post 9/11 U.S. law that I think represent a retreat from our ordinary principles or our well-established principles of freedom of speech. But in the context of what was said this morning, there are some things I want to talk about in a positive sense. We can, in the United States, burn our flag. We can insult the president. We can hang him in effigy. We can say he's a Muslim. These protections are important and very fundamental to U.S. jurisprudence, U.S. law. And it's also true that writers have tremendous protections from charges of libel, stronger in the United States than any place else, even stronger than in England. What I want to focus on then is the retreat that we're making from those principles, not by directly attacking those principles, but by encumbering them with criminal system. After 9/11, there were two laws passed that made it a crime to provide material support to terrorism. It was part of what the U.S. government and the media call the war on terrorism. And a series of organizations came to the court and said, this new law is interfering with projects that we intend to carry out. Our projects are lawful, and we want the court to tell us, can we do it without fear of criminal prosecution? Here are the things that they wanted to do. They wanted to train members of the PKK on how to use humanitarian and international law to peacefully resolve disputes. They wanted to engage in political advocacy on behalf of Kurds who live in Turkey. They wanted to teach PKK members how to petition the UN and its agencies. And they wanted to engage in political advocacy on behalf of Tamils who live in Sri Lanka. The court said that those activities were not protected. That is, that people who engaged in those activities, even though they're lawful in a general sense, even though they're really a kind of speech, they could be criminally prosecuted. What was it that made these activities criminal? First of all, the organizations are on a list of terrorist groups. So once they are declared to be the enemy of the United States, the ability of American citizens to interact with them is curtailed. If I go, as I did, to southern Lebanon, and if I happen to meet with someone from Hezbollah, I could be criminally prosecuted, even if I went there in an investigation related to a trial that I'm involved in. If I go to Gaza, I could be criminally prosecuted if I am speaking or coordinating with someone from Hamas. The government's position that was accepted by the court was that if we help them in any way, if someone from the United States goes and counsels them to engage in nonviolence, then we're doing two things. One, we're legitimizing them, and therefore they'll be more powerful. And the other thing is that we are enabling them to take their resources someplace else. I mean, that's the argument with fundraising, right? You raise money for relief in some troubled area, and some terrorist group can take the money that they would have spent feeding people and use it to buy bombs. That's the theory for why you can restrict money. But what is it that you could do with teaching nonviolence? What is it you could do with teaching people how to go to the UN? What is it that could be done that would have a negative effect on the United States? Because the law is about protecting the United States. But if you see how it's implemented, it's not about that. The Tamil Tigers don't pose a threat to the United States. They pose a threat to a government that we support. And that's what it's about. It's about our expressing political views that are positive to people who our government believes to be enemies. The possibility of criminal prosecution, I think, will affect the solidarity work of U.S. groups towards people outside of the United States, and will deprive people in the United States of information that they could have about these groups and their aims that we could derive from having communications with them. Now, these laws are not happening in isolation. And they're not happening under the Bush administration. The lawyer for the government who supported this law was from the Bush administration. There are two other cases which I think reflect the continuity of the Bush attitude towards dissidents in the Obama administration. The next incident I want to talk about is the criminal prosecution of the lawyer who represented an Egyptian cleric who lived in the United States and was charged with participating or encouraging attacks on U.S. targets. The lawyer violated a regulation, not a law. What she did is, when she went to see her client, he gave her a speech or a pamphlet, and she took it out and she gave it to the media. Now, she had agreed not to do that, but she didn't break any law. The judge sentenced her, despite her 40 years of work on behalf of the poor and the underprivileged in the United States. The government opposed the light sentence because it was only a few years. Now she's facing 150 months in jail for carrying a piece of paper to the news. The push, again, comes from the Obama administration at the current time. Then there's a new prosecution that's going on, or at least the beginning of it. In the Midwest, the FBI came and raided homes of anti-war activists. They took various documents from them. They are being brought to a grand jury, which is the beginning of a criminal indictment. These groups, although they are Marxist, were active in the Obama campaign in support of Obama. Still, their views, because of their supposed relationship with Palestinian groups, put them outside the proper discourse that's acceptable in the United States. And it's interesting that about the same time that we came to know of these raids, we also came to know of FBI surveillance on groups that would seem to be not outside the discourse. Greenpeace, Quaker action groups, among others, have been the targets of U.S. surveillance, theoretically because somehow they represent some challenge to the war on terrorism. I think that we can expect the courts in the United States to continue the formal protection of free speech. I could write a book saying the PKK was great. I could write a book saying the Tamil Tigers should have won. What I can't do is organize with other people. What I can't do is have communications with other people. I think this trend in U.S. law and in the attitude of the administration is a challenge not just to people in the United States, but to the community of people who want to work together for peace and justice, and who therefore need the right to speak. Thank you.